Welcome to Jesus Matriculation School, Talavadi social class. Today I go to explain you history lesson number 1, sources of medieval India. In the past class I explained sources. There will be two types, that is one primary and secondary sources. First one is primary sources, I already explained. Now today I go to explain you secondary sources. In these secondary sources there will be a literary works, chronicles, travels, and biographies and autobiographies will become now. So in that first one, religious literatures. Devotional movement in South India and later in North resulted in the development of bhakti or devotional literatures. The Chola period was known as the period of devotional literature, and works such as Kamba Ramayanam, Sikhs in Periya Puranam, Nalayars of Divya Prabandham, composed by 12 alvars and completed by Nada Muni. The next is Devaram is composed by Appar, Sambandar and Sundarar and complete by Nambiyadar Nambi. Manikya is Tiruvasagam. All were script during the Chola time. Jayadev's is a Gita Govindam in 12th century, was a follow-up of the Bhakti movement in South India. Kabir Das, a 15th century majestic poet, also had an influence on the Bhakti movement in India. Now we are going to learn about second heading of secondary sources, that is secular literatures. Madhura Vijayam and Amuktayata were poems composed by Ganga Devi and Krishna Devaraya respectively that help the gain insight to the event and individual associate with the Vijayanagara Empire. Point of secular literatures is Chand Bardai Prithviraj Raso portrays the Rajput king's valor. We have no Indian accounts about what happened during the Turkish invasion of India. For free Islamic periods, the only exception was Kallana's Raja Tarangini in 11th century. The third point of secondary sources are books, biographies, and autobiographies. Minraj us Siraj, patronized by Sultan Naziruddin Muhammad of slave density, wrote Tabaqt-i Naziri. The compendium deals with the period of the conquest of Muhammad Ghori to AD 1260. The compendium was named after his patron in the 13th century. The next is Hasan Nizami, a migrant from Ghazni, wrote Tazhul Mazir towards the end of Iltutmish's rule. It provides information about Qutbuddin Aibak and is considered the first official history of the Delhi Sultanate. The next is Ziaud Bardani, a courtier of Muhammad Tughlaq, wrote Tarikh-i Firoz Shahi, in which he deals with the history of the Delhi Sultanate from Ghiyazuddin Balban to the early years of the reign of Firoz Shah Tughlaq. The next is Farista Turkish-i Frista, 16th century, deals with the history of the rise of the Mughal power in India. Do you know? Tabakt is an Arabic word meaning generations or centuries. Tuzuk is a Persian word meaning autobiography. Tariq or Thaqib are Arabic words meaning history. In the 16th century, Emperor Baburnama and Abu Fazl's Ani-e-Akbari and Akbar Nama provide detailed information about these two emperors in the 17th century. Jahangir wrote his memoirs Tuzki Jahangir, throwing a lot of light on the period. Apart from autobiographies of emperors, Tabaq-i-Akbari, authorized by Nizamuddin Ahmad, is considered reliable than the X-generated account of Abul Fazl. Similarly, Bahadani's outstanding work, Bahadani's history, was published in 1595. This work spans three volumes. The volume of Akbar's Reason is a frank and critical account of Akbar administrations, particularly of the religious policy. The last point of secondary sources is travelers and travelers. Marco Polo, a Venetian traveler, visited when Pandya kingdom was becoming the leading Tamil power in the 13th century. Marco Polo was twice in Kayal, which was a potty city present in Thoothukudi districts of Tamil Nadu. It was the fully of ships of Arabia and China. Marco Polo tells us that he himself came by a ship from China. According to Marco Polo, thousands of horses were imported in southern India by sea from Arabia and Persia. The next one is Al-Biruni, 11th century, accompanied Muhammad Ghazni in one of his campaigns and stayed in India for 10 years. The most accurate account of Muhammad Somanath expeditions is that of Al-Biruni. As learnt man as soldiers, he travelled all over India trying to understand India and her people. He learned Sanskrit and studied the philosophy of India. Al-Biruni, in his book Tahqiq-i-Hindi, Al-Biruni discussed the Indian conditions, systems of knowledge, social norms, and religious. The next is Ibn Battuta, 14th century. An Arab-born Morocco scholar traveled from Morocco right across North Africa to Egypt and then Central Asia and India. His travels, we call that, contains rich details about the people and the countries he visited. According to him, Egypt was rich then because of the whole of the Indian trade with the West passed through it. Ibn Battuta tells us the caste in India and the practice of sati system. We learn from his that Indian merchants were carrying on the brisk trade of foreign ports and Indian ships in the seas. He describes the city of Delhi, a vast and magnificent city. Those were the days where Sultan Muhammad bin Tughlaq transferred his capital from Delhi to Devagiri, means Dawlatabad. In south, converting their cities into desert. In the south, Vijayanagara had many foreign visitors who left behind their detailed accounts of the state. An Italian named Niccolo Conti came in 1420. Abdur Razak came from heart of the Great Khan in Central Asia in 1443. Domingo Piaz, a Portuguese traveler, visited the city in 1522, and all of them record their observation, which are very useful for us today to know the glory of the Vijayanagara Empire.